how the YouTube algorithm decides what to show me, but today I woke up to a bunch of different videos claiming that people don't read anymore. And to be honest, I don't really think that's true. Hi, my name is Moana, and this is my reading buddy Spike. And I am a reading and writing lover who disliked English class as both a student and a teacher, and I am now documenting my journey of rediscovering my love for words. Yay! Thank you, Spiky. Spiky likes reading too. Today we're tackling a claim I keep hearing everywhere. Nobody reads books anymore. My first thought every time I hear this is, people aren't reading anymore compared to when? Let's dig into what's actually happening with reading in 2024. You might be surprised to learn that reading isn't dying, it's evolving. In fact, book sales have been climbing, especially since 2020. But here's the interesting part. How we read is dramatically changing. But before we dive into today's reading landscape, let's take a fascinating journey through history. The story of reading is really the story of human knowledge becoming available to everyone. In ancient Mesopotamia, around 3200 BCE, writing was mainly used by scribes for recording trade and religious texts. In ancient Egypt, it's estimated that less than 1% of the population could read hieroglyphics. But here's something really interesting. Reading for pleasure or recreational reading has its own unique history. For most of human history, reading was purely practical. For religious texts, legal documents, or business records. The idea of curling up with a good book for fun, that's relatively new. Before, social class played a huge role in who got to read for fun. The upper classes often had private libraries and leisure time to read. Middle-class families in the 1800s might share a single book, reading it aloud together in the evening. Working class readers often pooled their money to share newspapers and penny dreadfuls. Factory workers would hire people to read to them while they worked. And servants sometimes learned to read from discarded newspapers and magazines from their employers. In addition, gender dynamics also played a huge role in reading. In the 1700s, some doctors warned that novel reading could make women hysterical or unfit for marriage. Women were often restricted to reading religious texts or practical household guides. The rise of the sensation novel in the 1860s caused moral panic about women reading. Lending libraries became one of the few public spaces where women could gather independently. Many female authors published under male pseudonyms to be taken seriously. And women's reading groups became centers of intellectual and social reform. Now, the actual content that people read varied dramatically by social class. Upper class reading consisted of leather-bound classics in multiple languages, expensive illustrated art books, scientific treatises and philosophical works, poetry collections and theatrical plays, and travel literature from exotic locations. Middle-class reading was made up of family Bibles and religious commentaries, serialized novels in monthly magazines, etiquette guides and self-improvement books, agricultural and trade journals, and children's moral tales. Working class reading was made up of penny dreadfuls with thrilling crime stories, sensational newspapers with lurid headlines, chapbooks with simplified classic tales, political pamphlets and union materials, and adventure stories and romance novels. And here's where it gets really interesting. We can see these patterns echoing in today's reading habits. Even our reading platforms reflect these class distinctions. For example, we have premium hardcovers versus mass market paperbacks, subscription services like Kindle Unlimited versus collecting first editions, free library apps versus expensive e-readers, and book talk recommendations versus literary prize winners. But here's the amazing thing. Digital access is breaking down these old barriers. Today, a free library app can give anyone access to the same books that were once locked in private libraries. So the democratization of reading continues. So going back to the history of literacy, by the early 1900s, things were changing. The rise of department store book sections made buying books more accessible to women. Public libraries removed gender restrictions on reading rooms. Mail-order book clubs helped rural readers access more titles. Working-class literary societies spread across industrial cities. And the paperback revolution of the 1930s made books affordable for almost everyone. So today's debates about nobody reading anymore seem pretty ironic when you consider that for most of history, recreational reading was actively discouraged for many people. The real transformation came in the 19th and 20th centuries. In 1820, only about 12% of the world's population could read and write. By 1900, this had risen to around 21%. By 1960, global literacy reached 42%. Today, UNESCO reports that about 87% of adults worldwide can read and write. Public education and libraries played a huge role. The first true public library in America opened in 1833 in Peterborough, New Hampshire. By 1900, there were nearly 1,000 public libraries in the US alone. Today, there are over 160,000 public libraries worldwide. So when we talk about nobody reading anymore, we're actually living in the most literate and accessible era for reading in human history. Now, let's break down 3 big shifts I've noticed in how we read today. Remember when we thought e-readers would kill physical books? Well, plot twist, they're actually living together in harmony. While I love my physical books, I've got to admit, having an entire library in my pocket is pretty amazing. And we can't forget my favorite format, audiobooks. They've seen double-digit growth every year, proving that storytelling is alive and well, just in new forms. If you've spent any time on Book Talk, you know what I'm talking about. Books are going viral. We're seeing readers connect in ways that weren't possible before. Online book clubs, reading challenges, Bookstagram, the community is thriving. And here's something cool. Young readers are absolutely devouring books, especially young adult and manga books. Manga sales have literally exploded in recent years. And thanks to social media, finding your next read has never been easier. But let's be real for a minute. Has reading changed? Absolutely. We might read in shorter bursts. Books are competing with Netflix and TikTok for attention. And yeah, sometimes it is harder to focus on a long book. But that doesn't mean that reading is dead. It's just adapting. Whether you're listening to an audiobook while working out, reading a physical book before bed, or scrolling through an ebook on your commute, you're still engaging with stories, ideas, and imagination. Reading isn't dying, it's transforming. And personally, I think that's pretty exciting. So what do you think? How have your reading habits changed over the years? Drop a comment below and let's chat about it. Thank you so much for joining me for this video. And if you enjoyed it, make sure you hit that thumbs up button and subscribe to see more of my book reviews and other bookish content. Until next time, happy reading and see you soon. Bye! Spike is saying bye too. Bye-bye.